Crazy stuff in this file drop, huh? Jeffrey Epstein was permanently banned from Xbox Live. It was in his vacation email info. In 2013, permanently suspended due to harassment, threats, or abuse of other players. They had a terms of service requirement. You cannot be a sex offender on Xbox Live. But the real timeline, as we all know, this was after Bill Gates was hooked up with a Russian prostitute by Epstein and received an STD from her. And then Bill Gates didn't want to transfer the STD to his wife, so he surreptitiously asked Epstein for antibiotics to cure the STD, and Epstein got annoyed with him. And then Bill got annoyed back and banned them off Xbox Live. All of that is real, by the way. Like, actually. The journalist Barry Weiss hired was in deep. Yeah. This is the guy who Barry Weiss just hired to work on CBS News. You know the biggest problem with becoming friends with you, said this guy, Peter Attia, to Jeffrey Epstein in 2015. The life you lead is so outrageous, yet I can't tell a soul. Fascinating. It's probably safe to assume at this point that anyone in American media or political life affiliated with Israel is in on the Epstein conspiracy. That is a really, easy dice roll, if you want to play it straight on that one. I'm just like, if you're a betting man, and I'm not, but if you are, that's a solid one. Is this the double circumcision guy? No, that's a different guy who probably is also affiliated. You know what? The double Johnny Two Snips. You know what vibe he gives me? He missed the Epstein boat. That's the vibe he gives me. He hastily converted to Judaism, tried to get in on the big game, but he did it too late. The ship had already sailed. Like Elon? Elon was provided child slaves by Epstein. He got in with enough time. Did these people believe Epstein would never get caught because it's crazy they're emailing Epstein with shit like, boy, I do love being a pedophile? Okay, here's the problem. It's not a matter of whether they got caught. The FBI had millions of files on them. They're just all in on it. Why would they ever worry about getting caught? Everybody knew. The reason we have these files is because they were submitted. There are thousands of testimonies that were brought to the DOJ and FBI. What do they have to fear? It's an extremely big club, and you're not in it. The biggest club of all. This bizarre video of Jeffrey Epstein chasing girls around his kitchen was released in the latest Epstein files yesterday. Well, that's just great. That's just great. This is why they took so long releasing the files, you know? Having to manually censor them with the black bars in every frame of the video. Why did it uncensor points? They didn't do a very good job. I feel gross now. Here. This will make you feel better, okay? Jeffrey Epstein doing a jig. Oh, here he is in his patented Nick Fuentes branded sweater. Yeah, the pedo shuffle. He was more powerful than you think. He had the Israeli prime minister on speed dial. Buddy, he had multiple US presidents, former and current, on speed dial. What do you mean, Israeli prime minister? He had everyone. Seeing some people say Chomsky at other point disagree with the racial IQ, but in these emails he agreed with them. I think this email snippet is missing some context. There's a larger email chain here. God, Jeffrey Epstein is such a email Chad. Look at how many goddamn typos there are in everything he puts out there. Holy shit. It's incredible. What if it's a code? I really don't think they needed to talk in code. The only bit in these emails where I saw Epstein act as though they actually had to maintain a guise of secrecy was when Epstein was asked if he had any influence over Assad, and he was like, not for email. By the way, I'm trying to get a friend out of prison in Syria. You don't happen to have anyone with influence over Assad, do you? Not for email. That's really funny, dude. Makes me wonder who it is. Could just be Assad himself. Did Epstein control the world or some shit? No, it's just that all the people who do control the world are friends, right? You know the whole, slopulism, the culture war was put in place by the elites to distract you while they rob the world of all of its wealth? You know how that's always been true? It is now truer than it has ever been in all of human history. I cannot believe it. It feels fake, but it's real. Epstein probably had a hand in the release of Pull on 4chan. Moot relaunched Pull on basically the same day he met Jeffrey Epstein for the first time. Launched October 23rd, 2011. And here are emails between Boris Nikolic and Jeffrey Epstein between the 20th of October 2011 and the 24th of October 2011, in which they talk about meeting up. Epstein was close to Bannon, so this makes sense. What's pull? The politics board on 4chan, also the ideological zenith of basically everything we're dealing with today. 4chan has never had that many users, but it was basically like the origin point of the infection that then went on to seep into all of not just American, but like Western political discourse. The culture war seems as though it was entirely constructed. If you think about it, it makes sense because Steve Bannon back in 2015, 2016 was not only a close confidant of both Epstein and Trump, but also the big advocate for the exploitation of lonely internet men for the purposes of like right-wing radicalization. Steve Bannon was the guy saying like, hey, you know all these nerdy, sexless young men who are like agitated, frustrated, they're like Gamergate types or whatever. Those guys are the perfect base for the MAGA movement. And he was completely correct. And wow, it turns out that Bannon was affiliated not only with Epstein, but Epstein was affiliated with Moot when he made the poll board, and the poll board was the epicenter of this entire goddamn thing. Asmongold types? Yep. The entire right-wing culture war was manufactured by Epstein as a way of getting Trump elected and also promulgating a pro-right-wing, pro-pedophile culture. Simple as. The entire thing was a deep state op. It's not even a joke. Wait, so woke is the one true anti-Epstein position? Yes. Yeah, I've got good news for you guys. We're the main characters and we're the heroes. We are literally like the only institution culturally that Epstein has not had any ties to. Epstein has had ties to academia, Republican and Democrat politicians, Israel, whatever you want, you know, and the entire like dissident right-wing culture war, which by the way, coincidentally seems to have amalgamated to the point where Nick Fuentes, the envoy of the ideological follow-through to the poll board, is now defending Jeffrey Epstein and selling his sweaters. The only group that's outside of this is the left. That's it. We are and always have been the heroes of history. Did you see his emails where he admits to being a literal Jewish supremacist? Yeah, but like, why is that surprising? He was also everything else bad. And also all the people he interacted with were some kind of surprising. Like, yeah, of course, obviously. If he was Armenian, he'd be an Armenian supremacist. I don't, like, it's, yeah, fork found in kitchen. Does Israel have this much influence in any other country? It's not really Israeli influence because you're putting the cart before the horse here, okay? The power center here is international capital and finance. Israel is just an extension of American capital and finance. It's not really like, it's not the Israeli government controlling the American government. It's that both the Israeli and American governments are loyal to international capital. I think the Israeli government might just be a little bit more transparent about it sometimes. Or, well, used to be. Not so much anymore, right? Not now. Now that Trump is president and he's like, we're invading Venezuela for the oil companies or whatever, now Israel and America might be like on par in terms of how shamelessly they're sucking off international capital. You know, before that point, they were less subtle. Mamdani's mom's also in the files. I heard that, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know anything about it. It's a possibility, though. In a 2009 email to Jewish-American academic Roger Schenck, Jeffrey Epstein disparaged non-Jews and bragged about profiting from financial speculation, claiming success by shorting shipping futures while Goyim bore real economy risks. Here's the double standard, okay? Jeffrey Epstein almost like exclusively hung out with right-wingers. Well, I shouldn't say exclusively. He hung out with lots of people, but a ton of people on the right are open white supremacists. Why is it special that he's a Jewish supremacist? I don't get like, oh, people are going to lose their minds over this. Okay, every day we get more and more information about how every right wing in power right now is a neo-Nazi. Why is Jeffrey Epstein being the Jewish equivalent of a neo-Nazi like a surprising development or interesting? Like, I guess it's like, are there Jewish supremacists? Yeah, of course. There are Croat supremacists. There are Azerbaijani supremacists. There are supremacists for ethnic groups you couldn't even dream of, okay? There are people out there arguing that the fact that they have two sheep instead of their neighbor who has one sheep is evidence of their God-given dominion over the earth, all right? I promise you, there are lots of measureheads. Also, if I was Jewish, I'd be saying this shit for kicks. This is the way the Jew makes money and made a fortune in the past 10 years, selling short the shipping futures, let the Goyim deal in the real world. That's funny. I'd be posting like that all the time if I was Jewish. I'd be talking like measurehead. He's not wrong, though. That's how American capital works now. That's true. That is true. So everyone's a pedophile. Everyone rich is a pedophile. You know, people used to get mad at me when I said all billionaires are pedophiles. Look who's laughing now. Like, Jesus Christ, right? Melania confirmed to have met Trump through Epstein. We already knew that. I remember flying back with Donald on his plane. The first weekend I went to visit you in Florida was the weekend he met Melania, and he kept coming out of the bedroom saying, wow, what a hot piece of ass. This part isn't in her documentary, is it? The documentarian of Melania was also in the Epstein files. Melania threatened to sue Hunter Biden for suggesting Epstein introduced Melania to Donald Trump. No wonder they all defended Epstein so much. This is how they all got their girlfriends and wives. This really does make me feel like I live in a simulation, though. The idea that it is very likely the entire right-wing culture war was created by Jeffrey Epstein, or at least heavily influenced by him, in an effort to A, normalize pedophilia, B, like, 4chan is the most easily manipulable forum in existence, man. With everyone being anonymous, like, creating bots or, like, additional accounts or whatever to manipulate public opinion is trivially easy. It's so much easier. There's no standard of credibility that you get by, at least on Twitter, if a profile is a zero-post bot, you can see they have 0 posts, 0 followers, 0 followers. Like, you look at that, and you're like, okay, it's a bot, whatever. No way of knowing. 4chan accounts, you know what I mean. Posting profile, you know what I mean. Posts, anonymous posts. The whole goddamn thing. Pedocon theory's never been more validated. It goes beyond that, man. Like, I don't know. My entire life, I've been dealing with like the remnants of Epstein and Moot meeting up in 2011. What if we created a containment board for politics on 4chan and then we seeded it with lots and lots of far-right propaganda so we use it to kickstart stuff like Gamergate, Pizzagate, QAnon, like every single like right-wing movement that is now metastasized and developed into the modern MAGA crowd, all of it a construction of Jeffrey Epstein, or at least influenced by Jeffrey Epstein. So your career is owed to Epstein? In the sense that if it wasn't for Jeffrey Epstein and the power that he represents, we would all be living in a better world and there'd be less need for leftist content? Yeah, probably. Everyone with more than 25 real in their pocket is a pedophile who needs to be impaled? That's fucking true. Emails allege Jeffrey Epstein traveled to Paris with filmmaker Woody Allen in March 2012 for what was described in the correspondence as a pedophile convention. Well, Jeffrey Epstein corrects. He says, I think pedophilia is the pedophile because they're going to France. Will all this coming out weaken MAGA? Probably not. Not by much, at least. Donald Trump could openly admit to being a pedophile and it wouldn't swing the needle that much. If anything, it kind of seems like the long goal here from Epstein and people affiliated with him was to develop a right wing that wouldn't care about pedophilia. You know? Like, for instance, there's an allegation in here that President Bush was also affiliated to the baby and so on, you know, classic Epstein stuff. But if all these allegations had come out in 2006 against George Bush, you know, that would have sunk his presidency. I mean, that would have been the end of it, you know? That would have been it. Over. Like that. But now we have developed a right wing that is immune to these accusations because they simply don't care. Oh, this is Bush Sr.? Oh, gotcha. Well, the point stands in either case. Makes sense, though. He was a CIA boy. When saying baby, do they literally mean child? You do know they like actual children, right? It was Epstein's Island. It wasn't a bit. They weren't doing it for the gram. The gram wasn't even a thing back then, I don't think. Alleged George H.W. Bush raped a male victim and that the same victim was subjected to a ritual sacrifice in which his feet were cut off with a sword. The victim says he witnessed a child being torn apart, having their intestines pulled out aboard a yacht. He says the people on the yacht ate the intestinal waste. Yeah, sure, why not? I believe it. Why not? NYPD Detective Bureau Child Exploitation / Human Trafficking Task Force. From the task force in New York. Thanks, I didn't realize Bush raped him too. Okay. I don't know what else you say to that. Does this warrant leftist QAnon? You don't really have to be conspiratorial, man. It's all kind of like out in the open. It basically just seems like every bit of elitism and conspiracy and crime and graft that were committed by, I don't know, the French royals basically just continued undeterred. It's like nature abhors a vacuum. And if you create a system where an ungodly amount of power is concentrated in the hands of a small number of people, those people will then go on to rape and sacrifice children. It basically like 1-to-1. It doesn't matter what culture, language, whatever else, does not matter. It's just a material consequence of the desire of the uber wealthy to reify their supremacy over others by committing acts that no one else could get away with. That happened with the French elite? Yeah, of course. They just didn't like have journalists back then. Yeah, of course, yeah. Basically every system of extreme like inequity produces this kind of behavior to some degree or another, with basically no exceptions. Stalin was a pedophile, Mao was a pedophile, Hitler was a pedophile. The French royals were pedophiles. The English aristocracy were pedophiles. They're all like just over and over and over and over and over. All the way down. I still can't get over the whole culture war thing, man. What is it with power and pedophilia? Why that in particular? Because it's taboo, and because they're trying to reify their supremacy over others by proving they can get away with doing stuff that other people would get in trouble for. That's it. It's not like it's the only thing they do. They do other crimes. They do financial crimes all the time. They kill people, absolutely. They bury the bodies, but they do all sorts of stuff. This is just the stuff that it's the more sensational. Like you expect, oh yeah, powerful people have people killed, of course, whatever. This is the more sensational stuff, They do all of it. They do it because they can do it. Killing people is less sensational? Yeah. I think in my opinion, it is more sensational for the global elite to engage in ritualistic child sacrifice and than it is for them to kill people occasionally. You can, again, I don't want to argue with you about this, okay? I don't really care how you feel about it. Does Poll being an astroturf change or call into question any of the political theory we've developed around the online right over the last decade? No, if anything, it proves that I've been right this entire time. The right literally cannot exist without capital. Left thought, leftism, socialism, or even like left liberalism, all are produced as natural byproducts of interactions with the world. They're natural, sane, reasonable engagements. They're emergent. They're like properties that are emergent from experience with the world. Whereas the right wing, at least as it exists today, certainly, I'm not saying literally every conservative impulse is artificial, but the modern right wing is entirely artificial, entirely created by capital. It could not exist without billions of dollars being funneled in from the capital class to sustain it. And the reason they do that is because they exist to give cover for their crimes. In this case, it's as direct as it can be, right? Epstein was involved in the creation of the modern right-wing culture war, which has then, in turn, produced an online culture that defends Epstein. This is why the entire right-wing media is now defending Epstein, or they don't talk about it. They pretend that Trump wasn't in these files, or that it's all fake, or that it doesn't mean anything, It's like Megyn Kelly going to live to talk about how Trump barely like illegal girls isn't bad because they're just 16 or whatever, right? Like they all know what's in the checkbook, what they're paid to do, all of them. It's an entirely artificial position that is worthy not of consideration or debate. It's worthy only of scorn and, in a good world, mass disenfranchisement. Like conservatives shouldn't be able to vote, obviously. Like your ideology was literally created by a pedophile so that he could kids for longer. Like that is literally why your ideology exists. It's insane that you're even allowed to talk to me or look me in the eyes. Was Epstein really sending FNAF Futanari to his buddies? Yes. Who amongst us? God bless Thomas Massey, man. I forgive you for every one of your terrible political positions. Within hours of the Epstein file release, a super PAC funded by Israel First billionaires Miriam Adelson, Paul Singer, and John Paulson, who himself appears in Epstein's Black Book, bought another 800,000 of TV ads against me. I'll still win, but if I lose, it was worth it. Massey, you can have whatever dogshit social and economic positions you want if you keep on fighting the fight, all right? Whatever you want, man. Epstein writing to his bank he bought V-Bucks? Oh my God. This might be fake, but I want to believe that it's not. You're allowed to believe whatever you want right now as long as it inspires hate against the capital class. That's what I believe. Keep in mind with the poll thing that Moot was also steering strongly against Gamergate back on V and arguably left the platform due to poll taking it over. Not saying this is purely coincidence, but I don't think it was a fully planned out thing either. Things are rarely fully planned out from the get-go, but the idea that Epstein was involved in Poll's creation is just too much to ignore. Poll is literally the epicenter of the modern conservative movement online. It ended up inspiring basically everything. Everything the MAGA movement is today, everything that it became, all of it had its roots there. The idea that he would meet with Epstein literally the day he would create Poll. It's not the only time that Epstein's been like overly involved in online, like the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was a super Reddit user, like a super prominent mod who had a lot of influence in how Reddit was directed. Back when r/jailbait was super popular, who could, what a coincidence. She was a Redditor? Dude, she was the Redditor. She wasn't a Redditor. She was she was an extremely influential power user. Poll was made right around 4chan started to shift to the right when it was a left-wing site in the 2000s. How coincidental, Moot creates a board that would have basically no moderation and no social pressure against open neo-Nazism, and they create it on a site where it's incredibly easy to control public discourse by having just a handful of Mossad agents or whoever else, right? Just post whatever they want. All you have to do is literally, you could control all of Poll by having a dozen people working in the Wojak/Pepe mines and just posting shit, about Indians or Jews or whatever. Just it takes like nothing. It's so easy to influence. Larry Summers, Biden's economist, wrote to Epstein complaining about his kids liking Bernie in 2015. Yeah. Larry Summers' affiliation with Epstein is not new news, but that is very funny. Kids great, though tired of some of their admiration for Bernie Sanders. How are you? Bernie Sanders vindicated. Through time and history, a glorious God ray of light shines down upon him from the heavens. Jews believe in heaven, right? Yeah, they do. They just don't believe in hell. Some do? Okay. Epstein was part of the Dark Enlightenment. I could have told you that one. From Anonymous to Jeffrey Epstein. Have just realized when you criticize democracy, you used Plato's argument with the surgery. I also realized cum is really good body lotion. Just really high IQ stuff happened. Yeah, I agreed with reform Nazi Richard Hanania here. More compelling than anything Yarvin's ever written. It's so childish. Yeah, it's not like these people are smart or savvy. What is the Dark Enlightenment? Another psyop designed to shift people towards the far right, as it always is. Why would a wealthy cabal of pedos that controls the system allow that system to out their dark secrets? That's like asking how the royals allowed the French Revolution to happen. You don't control everything. There's no such thing as controlling the entire system. Also, dude, look, all these files are getting released. Do you see anybody being arrested? Remember, the deep state has long believed that public faith in democracy was going to decline at some point anyway. Isn't this the ultimate affirmation of that? We have like incredibly compelling evidence that basically every single powerful person in America is a pedophile and a criminal, a very, very bad one, and nothing is going to come of it. Nobody's going to be arrested. Isn't this a great way to disenfranchise and disillusion people? Why bother voting, you know? Just submit to Palantir. It doesn't make a difference anyway. It coming out as part of the power flex? Yeah, to an extent, I think so. How disenfranchised do you feel? I don't know. Do you feel powerful right now? I've heard somewhere the poll launch was planned a couple months prior, so the launch might be a coincidence. Don't give them a pass like that. You don't need to establish that everything was always like a plan from 0 to 100 on the part of everyone involved. All you have to do is establish his connections, okay? The fact that Epstein just coincidentally happens to be connected to literally everyone in power all the time, you know, you can't write this off. Epstein and Bannon directly benefited from what Poll became. You know, they definitely had a hand in it. Whether or not they were the ones who came up with the idea of creating it, they definitely used it after the fact.